If you want to become a civil engineering leader, you need to adopt a little bit of a different mindset as a leader than as a working civil engineer. So what do I mean by that? Well, in this episode of the Civil Engineering CEO, I have with me Eduardo Parra, who has his own firm in Texas that he's grown. But not only has he grown the firm, he's had to grow himself as a leader, and he really dives into some of his philosophy and provides some really interesting tips for civil engineers to become the best leaders that they can be. Before I jump in with Eduardo, I'd like to just offer a word from our sponsor, Pennoni. Since Pennoni's founding more than 5 decades ago, their clients trust Pennoni's commitment to elevating the impact of projects in the communities they serve. By partnering with their clients, they establish relationships that create trust and longevity. Pennoni approaches the start of every project as the beginning of a collaboration. With the rapid change in technology, Pennoni's clients know they are getting innovative methods in delivering quality services for smart, sustainable, and resilient solutions. Pennoni is relentless in their aim to bring fresh perspective and new technologies. Pennoni measures achievement in innovation, efficiency, and excellence. Its milestones are bigger than any one project, and every project affects the community, no matter how large or small. For more information, visit Pennoni.com. That's Pennoni.com. Now I'd like to welcome our guest onto the show for today. Eduardo Parra is the CEO at Parra Company, a Texas-based civil engineering and project management firm. Eduardo, welcome to the Civil Engineering CEO.
Thank you, Anthony. It's a pleasure being here.
Yeah, it's great to have you. And just to kind of kick things off, maybe you could tell our viewers a little bit about your company, specifically where you're located, how many offices or employees do you have?
So Parra Company was born in 2016 here in San Antonio. So we're in downtown San Antonio, a block from the cathedral, so very, very center of San Antonio. And we're about 12 people now, between part-time and full-time employees. We have a branch office in Houston, in the area of the Woodlands, and we have a satellite office in Laredo, Texas. We serve our main area of work is those 3 cities. However, we do go everywhere in Texas for our existing clients, and we right now, we got projects in the Valley in South Texas. We got up in the Panhandle. We got in Dallas, Austin, all through that corridor. So we're doing quite a bit everywhere in Texas right now.
And all types of civil engineering services, or what do you specialize in?
We do mostly site civil work, and we do both private land development work, and we do municipal work. On the municipal side, we do transit. We do a little bit of utilities, water and wastewater, and on the private land development, we do mostly commercial, I would say. We have a client that is a large supermarket chain here in Texas, H-E-B, and those pretty large stores.
Oh, that's great. So tell me a little bit about your career journey. How did you end up, starting the company? What did that look like for you? Did you always know you wanted to do that as a civil engineer? Tell me about that.
Not really. My dad had a civil engineering firm. I'm from Venezuela originally, and my dad and my uncle had an engineering firm and engineering and construction at some point. And I guess I grew up on that environment since everything, since I'm 14, working there, from sweeping floors and making coffee and filing stuff, getting the phone, till the point that I was actually allowed to go on the field. And of course, I eventually went for civil engineering degree, and I graduated. And how I came to the U.S. was to do a master's. So I did a master's at Penn State, and I interned for this company back then, the old Camp Dresser McKee, now CDM Smith. interned for about a year or so, and went back to Venezuela. And there I work, my family firm, and I was also teaching at a college, and I love teaching, and it's just such a rewarding experience. And there was a point that the situation in Venezuela wasn't getting any better, and we decided. My dad passed away around that time, and my uncle was getting ready to retire, and it seems like the right time to close the firm, and it was really hard. I was 24 at that time, and very limited experience, and I did my best trying to run it, but at 24 with very little experience, it's not the best time. So I seek a job here, and I went to work for a company that employed me before. I worked for them for a total of 12 years, mostly in Texas and Louisiana, but we'll travel a lot for them. And my last post was here in San Antonio as the principal in charge of South Texas. And at that point, there was a transition on boards on the firm around 2000. 2000 and I forgot, but there was a transition on the firm, and change boards and change company culture, and it was we wanted different things, and it's still a great company, but I didn't want to relocate to another city. San Antonio by then was home for me, so. My wife and I decided to open this firm, and that's how we ended up, on this path of engineering and entrepreneurship at the same time. And the firm is now almost 7 years old, so it's been quite a journey.
Yeah, congratulations. I know how
Thank you.
challenging it can be to start up any kind of business, quite frankly, and grow the business, and also, for you, someone who English is a second language, obviously you speak very good English now, but I'm sure when you came here early on as a student, that was probably just another challenge that you had to deal with, maybe that a lot of, American engineering students here didn't necessarily have to deal with. So it's just another thing that I would think even helped you to become stronger, which is great. And to see your success has been great. And so let's talk a little bit about in terms of like your management and your leadership style. If I were to ask the people that work in your company about your leadership style, what do you think that they would say?
You know what? I like to give people as much latitude as they can have. I try to give a specific instruction on the goal that we want to achieve and the path that I think we need to take for it, and I let them loose, and they're in charge of making it happen, right? And we have a very open floor plan, so it's not like my door is open, it's that we don't have a door, right? So anybody can just walk to my desk and ask me any questions that they have, and it's worked very well. I do not have time to micromanage anybody, and I think the trick for that is to hire drivers, people that will take the ball and run with it. And if they don't know, they research it, and then we discuss, why was it that you chose to do it this way? Tell me why you think this is the best way to do it. And then we do we always do value engineering among ourselves. And did you think of doing it this way? Well, why? We ran the numbers and we figured out it was going to be more expensive for the client if we did it that way, or it was going to be really difficult in constructability if we did this other way. So, but in general, they have quite a bit of latitude. And one thing that I truly believe on is that most things are not invented yet. And if you give your staff space for creativity, they can surprise you with answers that you haven't thought about. So, when you do a good job hiring, you might end up with product that is better than something that you could have designed yourself. So, I really I'm very proud of the capacity that all the staff, all the engineers, all the technicians, and everybody that supports them here at the firm have.
No, that's great. I mean, I really like that philosophy. I think sometimes as leaders, like we think like we need to tell people exactly how to do it. But like you said, if you give them some general direction and kind of let them run with it, they can really come up sometimes with ideas that are better than we might have, and, can really change the company going forward or change the way that we operate and the way that we do things. And I certainly like the idea of, if you want to have an open door policy, just don't have doors. That makes it easy. But one other thing that you said, though, I think is important, is you said, like, I don't have time to micromanage. And I think that's kind of a blessing in disguise, because I feel like sometimes as engineers, we kind of micromanage just because we like a lot of details. But if we're too busy, then maybe that's one way that we just have to like let go of some stuff, and let other people try it. And I think over the long term, that's really beneficial if we can learn how to do that. Because like you said, there's a lot of good things that come out of it. If you can give someone an opportunity, and challenge them. I mean, I would want to work for someone like that, right? That gives me some opportunities, So we've gone through a lot, I think, as a civilization over the past few years in terms of COVID and all the stuff that we've all kind of had to deal with together. When you're leading a company, obviously everyone in the company is looking to you, Eduardo, in terms of, if something happens, like they're going to say, oh no, let's look how like Eduardo reacts to this, right? Like, is he nervous? Is he happy? Is he calm? So like, how do you like kind of remember that and like try not to overreact or like underreact to things? Like, how do you like think about that when you're like kind of leading a group of people that are really, they're really like leaning on you for some direction?
I'm usually very calm and pretty good at crisis management. And I did a lot of disaster recovery work and hurricane preparedness and all of that. So getting bad news on a daily basis sometimes is the name of the game, and is okay. It's I guess it's understanding that in situations, philosophically, when there is a situation, there's limited ability to change that situation. So how do you make the best out of that situation, and how do you maneuver? And how can you be flexible on your plan and readjust to get to where you want to be? I think that's important. And understand that those situations are sometimes what makes life, curious, and what makes you grow. And if we don't have those situations, it'll probably be pretty boring, right? So we just gotta make the best out of it and keep on moving forward. And that's usually the way that I tackle things.
No, I love that. I mean, I think, being opportunistic, looking at opportunities and looking at things as opportunities. It's my daughter, who's a soccer player. She hurt her knee. She tore her ACL, and she was really bummed out about it. And she started going to physical therapy, and she realized that now she wants to go to college and become a physical therapist. And so,
Wow.
so I was telling her, like, when things like this happen to you, listen, it happened, right? So you can't go back in time and change it. What you got to do is experience the situation and make the best out of it, right? Kind of like to your point. And so I think that, but I think you can only do that if you're open to that, right? Like, you have to be open to that. And so I think your experience dealing with disaster and those types of things probably really helps you to be able to look at something and say, all right, let me think about this. Let me take a look. Let me step back a little bit. And I think that that's probably really valuable as a leader, because if your team can see that, they can kind of learn from that.
Right.
And that's really important. So that's cool. That's good to hear that. So talk a little bit about, we dealt with COVID, people started working from home, a lot of people, and then people started coming back, and like, how did you navigate that in your company in terms of trying to still keep people on the same page and make sure that we were still like a cohesive team, even if we weren't all together?
So in where I worked before, I got exposed to having offices or working with different offices, right? National firms usually do that. They will have a specialized group of structural engineers that are based in Dallas, and an electrical group that is based in Austin. And you're pulling this project together, and you're used to communicating with all of these remote groups. And I think we as an engineers have been doing it for so many years now, over a decade, with lesser tools than the ones that were developed around COVID. So doing work remotely was sort of natural for us. We also, with the different offices, we already have people elsewhere, and we do have people. Our marketing lead, she works for us from Atlanta. There's no reason why she has to be in the office here, right? That she's been working for Atlanta for a couple of years now, and we try to get together once a year, the whole firm, but it hasn't stopped us. In COVID particular, I guess it was a little bit more challenging because of the fear of what was going to happen to the economy, the fear of what will happen to oneself if you contracted this thing, going to be alive or not, right?
Right.
So, and the fear of, well, what's going to happen to my clients, and the disruption on that usual work cycle that we are accustomed to. I gotta tell you that I'm very proud of my team and the way they work together. And to this day, we maintain a hybrid way of work. And some people choose to come to the office. Some people prefer to work remotely, and we respect both. And again, our metrics, I understand how, because at the end of the day, our metrics are billable hours, right? How that is so important for us as engineers. But I like to focus on getting the objective done. And I think most everybody, if you give them a budget of hours, most of us as engineers, we just have such great work ethic that people will work whatever they need to work to get something done, because it's kind of your pride as an engineer of getting the work that you were assigned responsibly done and with the quality that you need to turn it in. And it's never been an issue of having people working remotely that they perform less than people working here. What I can tell you that is nicer is, the ability to just look around and tell somebody else something and just come over, let's look at the plans together. I mean, you can do it in Bluebeam via Zoom, no issue, or Teams. It's just, and especially for interns, for example, it's very difficult to be an intern working remotely, right? It can be done, but it's just different. So
Yeah, no, that's interesting. And I really like the point you made about, your marketing professional being in Atlanta, because I think what that says is that as a small business, if there's no geographic limits, you can really broaden your hiring spectrum, right? And like you said, you want to find the right people. Now you don't have to find the right person in your neighborhood. You can find the right person in another state that could still help you. And I think that that's very valuable in terms of growing a business, because you've just really increased your pool by a lot. All right, so I'm going to switch it up a little bit here. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions that I usually get asked by civil engineers that are developing, right? To get your feedback on some of these. So the first one is, what do you feel is like the number one skill or trait that is important for a civil engineering professional to have today?
Communication, hands down.
Yeah.
I think that's the reason why we have work where most of the work comes for us because we focus on the dialogue with the client. And his communications both ways is understanding what the client needs and wants, and us communicating why choices were made, or when something difficult is found, what are the choices that that client has. But communication also with your team and with your partners, is just so important. And we're so focused on the technical part all the time that we're great at it. We forget that communication is imperative, because you may think you understood the scope well because it's in black and white in the contract. When you go and talk to the client and they wrote the scope thinking of something slightly different, there might be some issues there. So communication.
So that being said, because a lot of people I think say that, but if I'm a younger civil engineer, like, how do I get better at that?
Well, I guess starting at the firm is communicating with your peers and communicating with your managers, right? And the best way for a young entry-level engineer is to actually repeat back what you think you heard. If you're being given an instruction at the end of the meeting, just summarize it in a nutshell. So just to make sure I got it right, I have 3 action items and they're the following. Is that correct? Yes. Nope. You didn't understand well. So that's very important.
So it's practicing it every day with people.
Yeah.
Continuing to practice it. And it's a good piece of advice. I mean, if you're an engineer out there, you're going to have opportunities to interact with other people, like your supervisor, like your colleagues. You have to just be intentional about communicating with them. And if something doesn't go right, you should really stop and say, what am I doing wrong? What can I do better? And ask somebody to help you, because a lot of times communication is like learning by just communicating on the job, essentially, and we have to, or else you can't just like read a book about it and then become a better communicator.
I was talking to my son. We're talking about majors and minors and all of that. And he asked me if I had to pick another minor, what would it be? And I told him philosophy, because understanding the basics of human needs, business needs, are very important when communicating with everybody else, and understanding what the other person's point of view is and why, and how to create dialogue and how to create agreement. And one point, and the other point is, for young engineers, I always recommend just be engaged and be involved, not only in your firm, but in your community. Just go and volunteer. There's so many things to volunteer, and just volunteer that is something that is your passion or something that you're curious about. And nobody judge you if you're volunteering there, and you say, hey, this is just not for me. I'm going to move to something else, and you eventually you're gonna find something that you're really passionate about, and that will help you a lot improve your communication skills. So
yeah, great point. I know you've been involved in the associations and stuff, and I think that that's a great way for people to get out there and volunteer on a committee and get to talk with people, get to network, get to communicate. And in civil engineering, I think your community is really everything, right? Like, you meet so many people through these associations and the ASCEs of the world and things of that nature. There's so many of them, but that's great. So how about if because I get this question from civil engineers a lot, like, how can I make sure that I'm adding value to my company? How would you answer that question?
I was reading a book recently, and I can't remember the name of the author, but business-wise, we understand that there's a multiplier on every hour that is billable, and that multiplier varies with company. But let's just simplify it, and let's say that it's a 3 number. So if you're not providing a value equals to 3 times what you're getting paid per hour, to the company, you're doing something wrong. So it's that's one thing that young engineers And I had that. I think we all go through that stage that we want to be paid more because we feel we just are worth more, but we don't understand that the value that we're giving to that company is not there yet, or is not compared there. I usually, well, the ASE has a really great scale for engineers that goes from a grade 1 to a grade 10 or so, and it tells you very clearly the skills that you must master on each grade to be able to advance. So question yourself as a young engineer and be honest on your self-evaluation on each of those points, and figure out how you can get better on those points. And thus you're providing then the value that the company can justify and say, yes, he's a level 2 now. He's there. He's complied with all of these. I can see that value that he's bringing or she's bringing. Let's just make it happen.
That's great. I really like that. And it's nice that ASC has that resource because it can kind of put some structure to something that may not be that easy to see, right? So, and I think as engineers, we like that, of course.
Right.
So that's great. All right, I'm going to ask you one question here. I think that the civil engineering industry has done very well lately, right? There's lots of infrastructure going on. There's funding. A lot of the clients that we work with are very, very busy. But what's one thing that you might be worried about in our industry, if anything, right now?
Talent pool. We need more kids going into civil engineering. And I gotta tell you that there is so much work coming out there that is, from the point of view of sustaining yourself as a human being and your family, and it's just a very secure profession to have. From the technical point of view, of course, you gotta like it, right? So assuming that you like civil engineering, it's just such an amazing profession, and I have been people that tell me, well, most things have been built the same way since 100 years ago, and that's a yay and an nay, because yes, a lot of it is very similar, and it's the challenges that we get. And now we're talking when we're talking about, well, we want to study the challenge of making it carbon neutral, or we want to study the way to better clean the water before I discharge it on a storm sewer, or I want to understand the way that I can really use a better BMP. And it's that curiosity that keeps me being a civil engineer. And if we show more to that to our young future engineers, I think we can have more people coming and becoming a civil engineer. So the talent of pool will be what I'm concerned about right now.
Yeah, no, it's a good, listen, right now there's a lot of work out there, and companies are having trouble finding people, and there's only going to be more work coming with a lot of the infrastructure funding. So I think it's going to get worse, and we need to do a better job of continuing to get out there and let people know about such a great profession and how secure it can provide for their families in the future, for sure. All right, I got a couple of last questions for you, a little bit more related to you. So as a CEO of a small business, you're very busy, I'm sure. You've got a lot of different things you're focused on. When you come to work every day, how do you kind of decide where to focus your energy for that morning or that day or that hour? Like, how do you make some of these decisions on your own time?
I think stepping into the role of a CEO takes a change of perspective. And that's something that, the book, The First 90 Days, talks about. That is, when you take another position, now you have to own it. And now you have to understand that the way you did things before might not be the ways that you need to do things now. And when I stepped into that role, I started focusing on the company goals, what were the company rocks, what needed to happen after you have a vision for the company, a 15-year vision, 5-year vision, 3-year vision, 1-year vision. And then you break it down into quarterly goals or quarterly rocks. We use traction here, EOS
we use that as well. Yeah.
So, when you have your quarterly rocks, how you make it happen is up to you, but you have to advance those rocks. So I got to make sure that whatever happens that week, because you always have to allow some flex time, because people are going to come to ask you something is going to pop up, but that you still have time to have traction and move that rock forward and get closer to your goal of the quarter, of the year, so your company can actually become what you want it to be. So that's the way that I get in the morning, and I'm saying, and I do the same for my personal goals. So, I had, I turned 46. So once you start aging, you start worrying about your health and all of these, and say, you know what, I'm gonna make health one of my priorities this year. So I laid out a plan about it, and I went back to the gym. I got a personal trainer. I make sure I attended all of my doctor, regular checkups and appointments, and my dental ones and my eye vision. And what happens is that you give it priority. And when something pops up, we're always moving meetings, right? We're always having to reschedule something, except if it's very important. So you give certain type of priority to these things that are your goals. And you say, you know what? I can't move that doctor's appointment because it's going to take me 2 more months, and I'm going to get behind on my personal goal if I do that. So, hey, I'll usually be straightforward with people and say, listen, there are many meetings that I can move that day. That one I cannot move. Do you have any other latitude on the time that we can meet? And that's the way you prioritize your time to make what you need to make happen.
That's great. I really like that. And I like the example you gave, because I feel like it's easy to prioritize work stuff sometimes, right, at the expense of personal stuff. And I found that as a leader, especially someone who runs a business, like, you're kind of responsible for taking care of everybody in your company, right, in terms of making sure that they get paychecks and their families are comfortable. So that means you need to keep yourself in shape, right? And so
Right.
I think, like, I got to always remind myself that it's easy to work an extra hour each night, but it's also better to go home and get exercise and relax a little bit and stuff like that. And so I think when you put it like that, it's a good way to think about it. So you seem like someone who likes to read. So is there like a book or an author from a leadership perspective that's been a really big influence on you in terms of your leadership philosophy?
Wow. There are many. I did this class in California, San Jose, California, from an institute that is called the AGI Network, AJI, and they focus on philosophy, and it was a 2-year class, and I, I did it because a few friends that were architects and engineers recommended it to me, and I, honestly, the first year I was still wondering, why was I studying philosophy? And let me tell you, that was one of the best things that I could have done from leadership perspective. And it's just understanding the why of us as human beings itself, and how to apply it to everything that we do. I do listen to, Tony Robbins is a fantastic speaker, and it gets you energized and moving and doing things, and he's a good one. I gotta think, because I read many other books. I can't remember the authors right now, but I would say those two right now.
Those are helpful. I mean, Tony Robbins, I went to one of his one of his talks, and I did the fire walk, which is just really intense. I mean, that was, my wife and I were terrified, but it worked. It worked out, thankfully. And but again, it gives you confidence. It shows you that you could do things that you don't think you could do, right? And that's kind of how we have to continue to push ourselves. All right, so I got one last question for you, Eduardo. When you get to the level of a CEO, things change, like we talked about. If you're a young civil engineer and you're just starting your career, you have supervisors, you have other people that you can go to for mentoring and guidance to help you develop. When you become the CEO, there's kind of less people maybe that you can go to for help and guidance and improvement. So how do you try to make sure that you can continue to grow and keep it up with the industry? Is it like talking to other CEOs, or how do you do that?
You can join groups of CEOs, certainly, and I am a member of one formal and a couple informal groups of friends that are CEOs, and we just gather and chat. They're always mentors, and mentors, they might not have too much time on their hands, and these are successful people that have obtained what you want to obtain. Not necessarily, they don't have to be civil engineers, but they may be somebody that have made a change in your city, in your community that you respect, or somebody that is a technical leader that you respect, and you ask them how they got there. Ask them what could have they done different when they were your age. Ask them, be curious. And I think most of these people are going to be very happy that you ask, and will go their way to help you improve and understand what your challenges might be, and tell you how they deal with them when something like that occurred. As a matter of fact, I remember me being quite young, and I joined, completely unrelated. I joined this Bible study group, and in this Bible study group, it was a Bible study for business professionals. And most everybody was at least 10 years older than me. And we had a state senator, we had a couple of successful business leaders there, we have a successful CEOs there. And just listening, how would they interpret scripture and chat about the business and talk about business ethics, and how we should deal with different things, helped me grow so much. And to this date, I remember some of I say, oh, that happened to my friend back 20 years ago, and this is the way he acted in order to be able to resolve it. So one caution with that, if you get a mentor, if you're lucky enough to get somebody that cares about you for a mentor, and they give you some homework, don't call them back until you go and actually do the homework and have some feedback on it. Because otherwise they're going to feel, well, why are you calling me again if you're not listening to me in the first place? So that's just one caution for that.
That's great. No, I mean, listen, they're giving you their time. You should be, respecting it and kind of taking their advice, and then going back to them with more questions once you've completed it, right? I mean, that's a good approach. Well, listen, Eduardo, I want to thank you for spending some time with us here on the Civil Engineering CEO. You gave us a lot of really great information. I like talking to you about the philosophy and the mindset of leadership. I think it's something that, we do need to take on a different mindset as leaders in order for us to grow and to help our team members grow. So I wish you the best of luck in growing your company, and I appreciate you spending some time with us.
Anthony, thank you very much, and thank you for everything that you do for the engineering community. Your training is very valuable, and we appreciate it.
Great. Thanks, Eduardo.
Cheers.
I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Eduardo. He really had some great thoughts on the philosophy of a leader in civil engineering, right? We have to let go of the details. We have to give our team a little bit of a leash to do things. and we always have to better ourselves. We put out videos like this on a weekly basis to help engineers become better managers and leaders. I hope you'll consider subscribing to our channel here so that we can help you be the best leader that you can be. I'll see you next week.